Hey guys, it's Rachel. It is Thankful Thursday. I just want to say I'm going to upload this. We've been having a few problems with YouTube deleting videos, so hopefully this won't get deleted. And you know, hopefully we can re-upload some of those videos that we had from last week. I'm going to just bring this in a bit. Okay, so this week we've started a new rota, and the wonderful Molly has decided to do the rota for us, and this week we're going to look at eating disorders compared to substance use disorders being things like drug addiction, alcohol addiction, and we started off by looking at similarities and difficulties, illness and obsession, and kind of where the boundaries were. And I know yesterday Ariel looked at the psychological link with them, and so today what I'm going to do for you is look at when eating disorders and substance use disorders like alcoholism co-occur. So I'm going to initially look at that, and then I'm going to look at whether it's mental illness or addiction. I've got quite a few opinions on this, which of course all of us do each week. First of all, I want to say that I haven't particularly experienced substance use disorders. I have had problems with alcohol in the past. I wouldn't consider myself to have been alcoholic or struggling with alcoholism, but it was certainly something that was very destructive for quite a lot of time for me, and only sort of in reflection now can I say that, you know, maybe even before my eating disorder or around the time that sort of started to develop, I was heavily drinking. I went on then to heavily drink for quite a long period of time, over one sort of year, which was when I was initially getting help for my eating disorder, and I think that I was in a battle between kind of the restrictive nature of my anorexia, which compressed me, held me down, made me very submissive, made me very isolated, and there seemed to be this other side to me, which the alcoholism kind of became problematic. In the same way I think Moya Hornbacher talks about kind of the bulimia and the anorexia for her, for me it was the anorexia was the submissive thing, and the drinking, you know, was binge drinking, was going out, getting, you know, absolutely hammered, to a point of quite dangerous levels with not only my drinking but the situations that I got myself in when I was drinking, you know, ending up in hotel rooms with different people, passing out in taxis on the way home, just horrible things. So for me, the eating disorder and the drinking did co-occur, and at points of my recovery I have drank, and drank quite heavily at times, but very kind of with awareness, I guess. So I don't think it's uncommon for these things to occur, and I know this week we're looking at substance use disorders, but I don't think it's, I think what I need to kind of highlight here is that eating disorders very rarely occur alone. I mean, and maybe the whole idea around eating disorders needs expanding, which I do think it does, but it isn't uncommon to find people with a range of eating disorders, with drug addictions, alcohol addictions, and other self-destructive behaviours such as self-injury, suicidal ideation. So I want to kind of highlight, what's difficult for me here is I'm thinking that eating disorders occur with things like substance use disorders, but I also know that eating disorders occur with other mental health issues, depression, bipolar, borderline personality disorder, other personality disorders. So I wanted to kind of highlight that, and so yes, eating disorders and other substance use disorders very commonly occur, and so then I go on to this idea of mental illness or addiction, and I don't particularly want to separate them, because I do believe that alcohol addiction and substance use disorders are a mental illness in the same way that anorexia is, bulimia is. eating disorder not otherwise specialized, you know, all of these things are mental illness, depression, bipolar, personality disorders, obsessive compulsive disorder, anxiety disorders. I could go on, and there's a reason that there's a book this thick which covers all the different disorders that are out there. So I don't actually want to separate this idea of mental illness and addiction. I think that it's both. I think that we can draw similarities, perhaps, in the way of mental illness and addiction. Addiction can be not just to substance use disorders, alcohol and drugs. It can be addiction to self-injury, it can be addiction to starvation, it can be addiction to binging, it can be addiction to purging, it can be addiction to, I don't know, shopping, cleaning, pulling out your hair, whatever. And they all work within an environment. They're not isolated, they're all linked. And so something that is a mental illness is also addiction. I could even go as far here as saying that depression can be addictive, because in terms of your brain chemistry and what goes on, if you become depressed at certain times in the year, the more often you fall into those patterns of depression at those times in the year, the harder it is to break, because the more your body, your brain, all of you falls into that. And so in that way, breaking out of depression is like breaking an addiction. Stopping starving yourself, stopping purging, stopping over-exercising is breaking away from an addiction. And I've actually, I am treated with medication, but I'm treated very carefully with the medication that I'm on, and that is predominantly because my psychiatrist sees the struggles that I have as being part of an addictive personality, and so she especially highlights the patterns that I form, some more destructive than others, as being connected to a bigger program, I guess, that is cycling around addiction. And with that, I do tend to be quite black and white, and I think that that's maybe where there's a difference with mental illness and addiction, in that breaking an addiction isn't particularly the same as recovering from mental illness. I don't even know whether you're kind of following my train of thought here, and it kind of is a little bit all over the place. But I don't want to separate them here, and I do think it's important that this week it does highlight that an addictive nature can be what leads us to the difficulties that we have. And I'm going to even go as far here as talking about abusive relationships and the withdrawal you go through, or one goes through, when one comes out of that relationship, and how difficult that is to come out of, and repeating patterns of abuse. There's some excellent articles on it. I know we've covered some of these things before, in that you're repeating a trauma on yourself through using your eating disorder, through using addictive behaviours. You're repeating that pattern, and I think that what can be quite repetitive within addiction, especially with substance use disorders, is this black and white, is that you're either on the drugs or off the drugs. And what's difficult, I know for me, and I know for others with eating disorders, is yes, I can stop self-harming, yes, I can stop drinking, I can stop taking drugs, I can stop running every morning, I can stop this behaviour, I can stop that behaviour. When it comes to an eating disorder, you can't just eliminate food out of that, do you know what I mean? And so you have to actually deal with that, and maybe that's where there's a bit of a difference in terms of treating addictions. and treating eating disorders opposed to these other addictions. I don't know how much use I've been, guys. I've kind of really been brainstorming, and a part of me thinks that I should break this video up and go back over it, but I'm going to leave it because I want to make sure that, you know, I've covered what needs covering here, and I don't want to be playing about with making another video and not touching on what needs to be touched on. So I hope that I've kind of helped those of you who maybe are not understanding this connection between addiction and mental illness. And I have to say, I don't separate them because I do see them as of the same thing, and I think most difficulties with mental illness are with addictive behaviours, and they can range, you know, massive, huge range of them. So I'm going to leave this video, guys, and hopefully they won't delete it. So I'll see you next week. Okay, bye.